All right. Yeah, welcome everyone to the City Services Committee meeting, Wednesday the 3rd of July. First on the agenda is apologies. At this stage, we've only got one that's not here, Dylan Bentley. He may be late, but I'll move that he is late. I have second. Councillor Ultra, all in favour?
Aye.
And we've got Heather Newell here as extra. I'll move that she has speaking rights. Councillor Holders, all in favour?
Aye.
Thank you.
Right. Item 2, declarations of interest. Declarations of see the owner, governance advisor. And we will go to item 3. We haven't got anyone here for public forum at all. So first on to our director's report on item 4, community services. Before I start, I'll just ask Mike if there's any updates on anything we report these talking about.
The report standards.
Standards, okay. Well, open to the floor for questions from councillors. Councillor Ultra.
Thank you, Chair. On page 4 on the homeless community, I just wanted to know, with the increase in numbers of people sleeping rough, are they necessarily homeless or like transient from other cities, and how are services coping with the increase?
Through each year, around the transiency, etc., there is around about 10 to 15, and that varies in Upper Hutt depending on the support that's been able to be obtained for those that want support in getting them into transitional or emergency housing or in getting some support in and around them. But that number is hard to be specific to quantify, but it's around that 10 to 15. And some come from out of Upper Hutt, some live in Upper Hutt. It's constantly changing.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Holders.
Thank you, Chair. Through floorball number 49 was a popular topic during that weekly consultation, and I've had and I know others have had people contacting them around that. One of the suggestions that came through from someone was that it's a real feed into hockey, and I know we're shifting from a sort of delivery into an enabling. I just wondering where that's at.
Through each year, we are going to continue to run that right through until December, and we have the staff in place to do that. We are looking, and there is an Upper Hutt floorball club, and we're looking at the possibility of them taking that over in 2025, or looking at other potential options around that.
Yeah, thanks. It was just suggested that the hockey club might be one of those if it's a good feeder for them. Thanks.
Cool. Councillor Cass.
Back on page 4, para 7, about the government provided housing first service. So it's being provided in Upper Hutt. Is that to the Upper Hutt Housing Trust or who?
Through you, Chair, no, it's not through the Upper Hutt Housing Trust. Housing First, we were accessing their support and expertise from Wellington. It now sits, and the name of the organisation escapes me, with an organisation in Lower Hutt, and they are responsible for Housing First in the Hutt Valley. So we've connected with them.
So could perhaps the director send an email to me or us about the name of the organisation?
So, find a little bit more out around the connection that we've made with them and the work that they do, supporting us and others in dealing with that homeless situation.
Just on the food crisis space, end of March in our last report, we noticed there was a 60% increase in the food bank demands. How's that looking at the moment?
I've actually got some figures here. So, for example, if we look at Upper Hutt Food Bank, and this, through your chair, this is pretty much across that food space at the moment. in 2022, so that's from January to December in 2022, they gave out 1,388 parcels, and that was to total clients of 4,599. Last year, that went 2,261 parcels, 7,415 clients, and the trends in January, February, March, April, May of this year suggest that it is going to be even higher than in the feedback that we're getting from Orongamai Marae and others is that there is a real growing demand in that space.
As I said in the last quarter, it's a worry, I think. Councillor Casson.
Yeah, following on with that, have you been making contact in terms of this crisis food space with the Trentham, for the Timberlea Community House? They provide bread and other kai twice a week.
Through you, Chair, with Tucker Time and Chris and the team up there, and they access it through Kibosh, and yes, we are, and they are one of about 4 that we engage with throughout, and there's the Salvation Army and stuff as well with their kitchen down there.
Councillor York.
Thank you, Chair. I'd be very interested in getting some analysis of all of the organisations that are actually working with families in Upper Hutt, getting an idea of the actual stats. Because I know Orongamai is doing a massive amount, and perhaps that could be fleshed out to how many constituents are they actually serving as a whole, as a whole.
Through your Chair and the Salvation Army, etc. And Orongamai Marae is now doing the Pataka Kai, which is there are 7 places around the community where you can either go and collect food or you can put food into, and Birchville, Brownell, Timberlea, St Joseph's, etc. And that is a national, and the little catchphrase is share what you can, take what you need. So that's, and Orongamai Marae, as per the report, is contributing quite significantly to that as well.
It'd be good just to have an idea of how many families we think are in dire need on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Mm.
Through you, Chair, we could try.
Mm.
I can give it to
Councillor Beatley.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Chair. Sorry for my lateness. I am aware that they do coordinate with each other about making sure people put the scrutiny, don't double dip, to make sure it goes around evenly. So they might have a database that they share to say, okay, you're a Salvation Army customer, you're a food bank customer. So they must have some kind of record of what the true numbers are.
Through you, Chair, it's through the community development team, we facilitate those groups and we get those groups together, so we make sure left hand knows what's right hand's doing. There is a little bit of that in respect to comparing notes, but less so. More of the organisations now are, if you need and you come to us, we will give to you, as opposed to having some criteria which potentially used to be the case a year or 2 ago.
Yeah, okay.
Mm.
Any other question, Councillor Alger?
Thank you, Chair. Could you please explain a little more around the shift from food crisis response to food resilience response? So is that more about growing food?
Through your Chair, yes. It's more around supply and being able to grow your own food or access community gardens or other ways, so that regardless of the circumstances, and if we have a civil emergency or something or other, people are able to provide a little bit more for themselves, as opposed to not having anything at the moment, which is the crisis definition.
Any other questions? No. I'll move the report we received. Secretary. Councillor. All in favour? Aye. Right, we shall move on to item 5. Director's report, planning, regulatory services. I'll just get the director to just an update on the.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, two items I was keen to update on. In relation to paras 3 to 5, this is regarding compliance services. Those paras are about resourcing of the team. Look, I just wanted to update. We've spoken, you've asked me about this before, Chair, just about contractor arrangements in that team. As of the end of the month, 28th of June, we've moved to a new operating model in the team, which is, as indicated in the previous report, I guess in simple terms, that was a narrowing of the scope of contractor services. We've also moved to a new supplier and also moved some of that operating model is an overtime operating model with staff in the team. And early days, but based on the first long weekend with our new contractor, that appears to be operating really well. So pleased to report that to the committee. And then in relation to labour and my report, just regarding compliance accreditation, that's in para 35 in relation to the building team. Really pleased to provide to the committee that all of the findings have now been cleared as of 1 July this week. And I guess in summary there were a couple of serious non-compliances that were identified, and I suppose in simple terms, they were classified as serious non-compliances because they related to a couple of items from our 2022 audit. Those and all the others have now been cleared. The report findings overall have concluded, because those two serious non-compliances, they categorised us in medium risk, only in relation to those two matters, and in all other respects considered us to be low risk. And on that basis, we have now been scheduled for a 2-year assessment, which reflects, our general low risk profile. So, Chair, I just wanted to acknowledge publicly just the incredibly focused and dedicated work from the building control manager, our quality assurance manager, and of course the whole team that really worked really hard clearing those matters since the March audit. Thanks, Chair.
Cool. Open to the floor. Councillor Ultra.
Thank you, Chair. What sort of non-compliance were the serious ones?
Yeah, they related to our technical internal auditing in relation to CCCs and specifically compliance schedules, and the other was in relation to the recording of changes with compliance schedules. And as I indicated before in the update, they were discrete, but there were some legacy hangover matters that we hadn't quite seen through. That was really around documenting our process and
Thank you, Chair. On page 27, we've got the resource consent processing performance report. And I note that in the past year, we have not declined any resource consent applications. Is this because people are better educated about what they would apply for, or is everyone just raising the bar?
Through you, Chair. Nationally, actually, the percentage of declined resource consents is actually always relatively minuscule. And really, it's probably a little bit in part, I suppose, around some of the quality of the proposals, but really in practical terms, most applicants either participate through a pre-app process where they engage, sometimes with an agent, otherwise certainly with officers, and look to narrow those points of contention. But certainly, if the officers always aim to communicate clearly with anyone that's participating in that process, including the applicant. And at times, and look, I would need to check on the stats, but at times, if it does appear that it's unlikely to receive officer support, often those applications would be withdrawn rather than actually getting to a point of a refusal of consent.
Okay, I've got one other on page 29. And that is the 2-lot subdivision within Pinehaven Ponding Zone. And that was granted. And I was wondering, does the Pinehaven Ponding Zone, what does that mean?
Through you, Chair. This, just for clarity, this is second from the bottom on the page there, the 27 Elmslie Road site.
Yeah.
So those provisions operate in a way where they do they don't categorise so in that case, sorry, it was this particular application was around a second dwelling and a subsequent resource consent, so both restricted discretionary applications. The district plan provisions, the way they operate, they enable a pathway. They just require that a resource consent application is made, and then essentially that the flood hazard risks are assessed, and ultimately, excuse me, those matters are assessed, and in this case, I understand in terms of the land use consent there for the second dwelling, this was fundamentally around the minimum floor level, and that was a design element that was worked into this application. And in particular with subdivision applications, again, a pathway exists. If there wasn't a pathway to gain consent, these matters would be classified as prohibited activities. And in both of, so in the case of this particular site, so it was both a land use consent and a subdivision consent, both restricted discretionary, and they were both granted consent on a non-notified basis. I did have a preliminary conversation with the reporting officer on this particular matter, and as I just indicated, there was a minimum floor level design that was incorporated to that second dwelling, and that was a critical factor in obtaining consent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Carson.
Thank you. Page 21, paragraph 38, our wonderful Wellington Water. What is it doing about stopping, improving the processing application consents? Please.
Through you, Chair. I will attempt to, I was going to say be delicate in my answer. Look, the officers working on the consent applications, they do engage directly with Wellington Water through you, Chair. There is an element of frustration around the performance that we are seeing and the timing of some of those comments out of Wellington Water. Previously, and member of the committee may recall this from previous discussions, at times when the volume of applications have been lower, we have consequently seen a better relative performance. However, I don't believe that I can sit here and tell this committee that there are new actions being taken by Wellington Water to improve if I can liken it to the per consent performance. Really, what the officers are doing to manage that on a day-by-day basis is really just attempt to improve the relationship point with Wellington Water, and simply raise, escalate and regularly track these applications. But I openly answer that question as I have previously, that has been a significant source of the delays and the over statutory timeframe performance that we have had in the
So the other councils experiencing the same thing?
through you, Chair, as I understand it, yes, it is consistent.
So have your counterparts and other councils they've been discussing this?
Yeah, through you, Chair, yes. And again, it is a source of frustration.
Okay, so nothing new.
Councillor Trichinelli.
Is there a cost to exceeding the timeframes?
Through you, Chair, yes, there is. It is, there's statutory discounting. And what that results in is up to a 50% discount in the fees. So if, in simple terms, if it was a $2,000 invoice over and above a deposit, if we exceed that statutory timeframe, it is up to a 50% discount, and it's prorated. What the officers tend to try to do, the bulk of the applications that we're processing do come in and are managed with an agent, is that the officers will try and work together to informally place applications on hold. Most agents are, as to the previous question, are unfortunately aware of some of the delays and actually give advice out of Wellington Water in relation to infrastructure, because it is, again, per that last question, it is something that is regionally consistent.
Does that mean that the applicant gets a partial refund and that comes from council, not from Wellington Water?
Through you, Chair, absolutely. To put that another way, that ultimately comes out of council coffers more broadly.
Thank you, Chair. On that same line, can we please have reporting of how much is being refunded in this report on a future basis? That'd be good.
Through your chair, yes.
Yeah, thank you. And if we've, for Councillor Carson said, if we've talked about it amongst the region, can this be escalated at the chief executive level? Because this is, we can't see it go on forever, and we should have a good rationale from them why this keep happening.
Through your chair, yes. Yes, is a short answer. Slightly longer answer is working with my colleague in the infrastructure group, just around, I guess, closing, I can call it some of these gaps, some of these operational gaps, because akin to the previous question and your point around reporting, financial reporting, it has a cost.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just disappear into the ether, it is born ultimately elsewhere in council operational budgets.
So when we set our fees and charges, the resource consent fees, that's a statutory fee, or is that we consider?
Through your chair, we set those fees based on our operating cost.
Okay, so these, are we taking into the fact that we discount 20% of them when we set those fees? So are we therefore recuperating it anyway? Or are we setting it at a level when the 20% is, that discount is coming out of rates?
Through your chair, we always look at the full cost, and we do look at the full net cost.
Yeah.
I want to answer that correctly, I do want to just go back and have a look at how the specificity of that line item, to be frank, when you're going around actually that operational cost from a performance of Wellington Water and to what extent that's
Is that being passed on to others or to ratepayers?
So I will come back to you.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So can I follow on about this, so to labour the point, is it possible that the applicant can then invoice Wellington Water to recover the costs that they would have got the discount from Abbott City Council for delay? Is there anything stopping that? In other words, we won't give them the discount. In order for them to get the discount, they have to go to Wellington Water and give them an invoice.
I appreciate the logic of member and it really makes I can support it. The RMA is clear as what the RMA does is it imposes that discount directly related to our accounts.
Creative.
I've just got a question on page 29. It's to do with the operation of the coffee cart headed through to Thomas Neal. Just this, and there's a bit more in a couple of the other directors' reports as well to do with we're seeing a big, huge increase in commercial activity running out of a residential residence, and they're not paying commercial rates or no portion of the commercial rates. So how do we capture the increase in this happening? Because it's getting bigger and bigger now, more people are doing it. And mine's about being fair. So fair. And is there ways we can actually capture this?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I think the point that you're asking there relates to a broader conversation that we had as part of LTP deliberations and discussions as well. And I guess just to acknowledge that my colleague in the finance group is looking at a broader rates policy and I guess that broader sort of differentials picture. What I would say from answering to that question from a reg perspective is the extent to which that future piece of work looks at differentials or some other mechanism in relation to the operation of non-residential activity in residential zones or some other analogous activity. There is likely to be something that would come out of regulatory approvals that would then trigger something if there was a rating policy set. So that's how I would see the relationship between regulatory approvals and what council in a broader sense may do in relation to rates.
Because I don't want to reinvent the wheel here, but I assume that there's a lot of other councils in New Zealand probably have different setups as well for that. So I assume Lower Hutt has something different. Wellington
Yeah, through you, Chair, I would probably really quickly defer to Kate if we want to start talking about rates policy. And I will not try and stray outside of reg approvals.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm not trying to predetermine anything, but yes, other councils have different rating differentials for different categories of commercials. So you can have light commercial, heavy commercial, blah, blah, blah. Different levels of business rates, etc. So that is part of what we would consider as we develop rates policy. We obviously need to, in developing a policy, find a basis. So we can't make something out of nothing. If it's not there, we can't do it. You know, we're stuck with the tools we have. But to answer your question, other councils do have that type of distinction.
Councillor Hammond.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. Thomas Neal is a industrial area anyway. Exactly. So that they will be on industrial land paying industrial rates, which is 200 times more than residential rates. So really they're paying their share anyway.
With more the residential properties, you know, where you had a tattooist or a beauty salon opening up in a commercial, in a residential, and do you take a percentage of that out of their, do they pay 10% on their property? It's commercial. I don't know how you capture that.
But this particular one.
No, I'm just using that as yes. Right. Any other questions? I'll move that report be received and I've seconded. Councillor Holderness, all in favour? Right, we shall go to our next report, which is the strategy, partnerships and growth. Can I have an update from the director if there's anything that's updated?
Through the chair, thank you. Yes, just a note under paragraph 38, the page referring to website form submissions. Just a correction to the line around applications for LIM. There's an incorrect number in the 2023 column. There's a 0 that should be a 72 as the comparative number from the data from a year ago. And that also makes the percentage change column 99%, not as was stated inadvertently. And just to draw your attention to some good news under para 85, the last bullet point referring to the award received by one of our sustainability stimulus grant recipients, a national award from the Landscape Architects organisation that was received in May.
Right, I open up to the floor. Councillor Holderness.
Just a couple through you, Chair. On para 8 around the community survey. And if that's now closed only on the Trinity project. Just wondering what the level of engagement was to that and whether you might see some results come back from that.
Through your chair, yes, the survey has just closed last week. There's actually 4 surveys that done as part of our non-financial performance reporting. And those results, when we receive them, I believe it's due in towards the end of July, early August. That will be brought back to council in an appropriate form.
Thank you. I also had a question around the Carnival of Lights. Obviously, a huge drop off in attendance this time round. Any idea what's next for them in terms of are they still looking to run it in future years or?
Through your chair, at this point there haven't been further discussions on future events. Sponsorship of that being a 2-year commitment, which is now complete for this at this stage. So no further discussions have been had.
And just one more through you, Chair. Para 51 is more a note than anything else around the public housing stock there. I think I mean, I personally would find that helpful as well if we had the numbers, not just the percentages.
Through you, Chair, yes, that query has been raised elsewhere, and I have got some numbers. And that I can share. So the 1.9% increase stated by Upper Hutt comprises increase of 8 actual units of community housing stock. And that takes the total in Upper Hutt up to 440 at the moment.
Number 52, while we're there, paragraph 52. What does this mean, and what implications are we taking from the 6.5% growth in gaming machine profits? What do we, okay, yeah, that's the numbers, but what does it mean? What do we?
More money going in.
Yeah, but so what? Is this good? Is this bad? Is this?
More free money.
Take what you want from it.
It's gonna be who you are. It's a
Kind of, yeah,
Through you, Chair, that it's in there as a point of interest, but we subscribe to the quarterly economic monitor, and they what Infometrics have done is take a suite of measures of statistical measures and looked at where there is correlation to socioeconomic outcomes. They cannot say that one is causal of the other at all, and they don't try to and don't pretend to. But they do. There's things like commercial vehicle registrations. The number of commercial vehicle registrations is another one that's reported on in terms of business health, because there's a correlation. One does not necessarily relate to the other, and they have discontinued that one because of the shenanigans around electric vehicles and not electric vehicles and what's going on there. That those results suddenly became meaningless and the correlation disappeared. But in this case, this is one that does show a level as those gambling numbers increase, there's a correlation with deprivation increases, with socioeconomic deprivation increase. And so the bigger that number, supposedly, if that correlation still exists, the more deprivation, socioeconomic deprivation there is in the community. So it's a canary in a coal mine in a way, but not even as directly as that. But it's one of a suite of measures, and it really should be taken in conjunction with all of those measures.
I just feel as if we need some, if we're going to sort of keep looking at this, maybe we just need some commentary which gives it some context, as you've explained. And how does this could be interesting in terms of grants available to the public. Community grants, there's a correlation there. If there's lots of gaming money available for community organisations, is that good, or is that not so good? Or
it would be interesting to see how much of those profits that are taken from Upper Hutt are actually fed back in through grants to Upper Hutt, because some of the gaming trusts that take that money work on a far wider basis than just in Upper Hutt. You'd have to look too at times when we might drop and it might pick up somewhere else. Do we still retain the access to grants in Upper Hutt at a more consistent level? That data does not come in. Statistics New Zealand doesn't collect that data in the same way. But it is data that DIA has. So,
Okay. We've got a couple of mentions on 88, the water resilience campaign. On 88, a good shout out to the amount of tanks, water tanks we've actually sold this period, an 815% increase. I think shout out to the comms team for getting it out. Obviously, the message got out to the public through that summer period, which is great. Also, just on 67, about the business order, put traffic down in the city centre. This is going to be a big issue, and I know personally talking to other retailers and other people throughout New Zealand. So this is a big worry for a lot of businesses locally here and even regionally. So yeah, do worry, a bit like our food bank, how that's had a huge increase as well. So, we have to watch that very seriously as well. Councillor Carson.
Now, just going back to 52, in my mind, this shows a bit of a bias because it's unbalanced reporting. So if we're going to report this, we should have also reported the amount of grants going out to the community from pubs. It doesn't include clubs. And the next point is, if we're going to do this, why don't we show TAB? Because that's taking money out of the community. So I find this is somewhat biased in terms of reporting, and I just really question why, if we're going to do this, we need to show the full picture of gambling, which not only includes gaming machines, as well as DAB and even lottery thing. I can speak now because I do not have interest. In terms of Power 8, it's really want to focus on one of my pet subjects is the Beechwood Lane Bridge. And it says it's, I think from memory, when I get my little finger going to the right spot, it talks about being completed by the end of June. Where it is, on Power 32 on Power 6 actually. It's project to be completed by mid-June. So 3 questions. 1, is it completed? 2, the website project page isn't showing an update about completion when I looked at it. And thirdly, are we having a ceremony or something to bless the newly restored Beechwood Lane Bridge, please?
Before you do that, it's more directed at the next director's report because there's quite a big section about Beechwood Lane in that one.
Well, it doesn't matter. I'd address it now in 6.
Through you, Chair, I can comment on.
Either directors can answer it.
That reporting was from a communications perspective, and at the time of writing, it was based on the projected completion time. Happy to defer to my colleague or wait to the next report.
Through you, Chair. You beat me to it, Councillor. I was gonna excitedly confirm that the physical works are now complete on Beechwood Lane. In terms of your questions around whether there's going to be a grand reopening, I'm not familiar if there is going to be such a thing. I haven't heard of.
Well, considering the history of the Beechwood Lane Bridge and considering the interest in getting it restored rather than replaced with a modern version of it, I think it would be good for to have an opening of it, of its restoration. And one person that should be invited should be Peter O'Flaherty, as well as myself, of course.
So you can pay the bill as well.
Just through you, thank you very much for that feedback. So anyone that's actually been out to Beechwood Lane will note that the scaffolding is still there at the moment. Because
what's scaffolding?
Yeah, because I was going to say, while we have now got practical completion of the project, we're just awaiting the final engineering sign off. So that does give us a few days in which I will discuss with my colleague around what the most appropriate reopening, inviting the gentleman you mentioned and yourself, of course, to that reopening.
If there's sausage rolls, I'll come.
Oh, I'll be there too.
Any questions, Councillor Alders?
Sorry, just going back to the 49, 50, 51 kind of those and 32. If we've got no increase in affordability here in Upper Hutt, we've got an increase in house prices, we've got rental affordability going down. And in terms of our public housing stock growing at a much slower rate than the national average, what levers do we have to, because I take the point about the Canary with the gambling increases in there, and knowing that the cost of living crisis and everything else is there, what levers do we have, if any, to be able to help encourage stimulus in in the public housing stock area?
Well, but it's a matter of, I mean, to be honest, since the election, things have been on total hold.
Yeah.
So, you know, that some of the developments that they were talking about a year ago, everything's just
Already changed entirely.
Yeah. So it's
With
not,
all our levers.
but we're no different. It's like that across the country.
No, I just note that our particular housing stock has been growing at a much slower rate than the national average.
So
So,
it has been for 50 years.
I can speak to one thing around the change there and the different degree of change. And that would be that with the change in government and the bigger the amount of housing stock or the bigger the number of developments underway, the longer it will take for that change to drop off and housing stock to sink in. If you look at the 5-year averages, that the current averages are generally dropping a lot below that in terms of what's happened over the last 5 years. It's showing that everywhere there is a tailing off, but where someone is building 100 in Wellington, for example, 145 new houses have been built, and there's 145 new houses out of a projected 250 underway. When things slow down, it takes longer for that to show through in terms of a percentage change. Where we've only got 8, we're turning a speedboat and they're turning an oil tank. So I think that's part of the most recent change.
Councillor.
Through you, Chair, I just wanted to go back to the rain tanks. I have a question around we've got the 200 litre tanks only at this stage. I'm just wondering if there's any interest in increasing the sizes that we have available, and also the shapes so that they sit up against a building instead of the round ones that take up more space.
Through you, Chair, I guess there are some practical operational considerations around our ability to manage the current size tanks versus any larger tanks. We store them on site, staff help get them out the door for customers and members of the community. So there's some practical limitations on what we can do. And I guess we have been providing the current size of tank for a long period of time to the community, and it has met a particular demand. I guess there are opportunities to obtain tanks elsewhere from other sources. Yes, admittedly not at the council offered price. But I guess the big focus around the increase uptake in recent months has been very much driven by the water resilience campaign and linked to broader issues such as awareness of the water supply risks over summer and all sorts of matters that have increased that heightened awareness and uptake in the community. So I guess the initial thought would be that the current tanks have served the correct purpose and have been manageable for us operationally, I guess, and also mindful of what our core activities are moving forward. So I guess we would be mindful of that in terms of any proposed changes to what we currently provide to the community.
And through you, Chair, just to support 100% what my colleagues said, in addition, a fun fact is that those tanks are designed so they can fit in the back of a Mirage or a 2-door hatchback. So any sort of member of the community has the ability to go and get a water tank to increase their personal resilience. It was really hear what you're saying. For me personally, I started with one of those great little tanks and then did the maths once my kids got a bit older and thought perhaps 1,000 litre tank would be better. And I approached the tank guy who is the manufacturer directly, and it's quite a reasonable cost to, buy one yourself as an individual. We also, as my colleague said, take advantage because the entire region are buying the same tank. So we get bulk business.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Holderness.
70 and 71, the mobile vendors, I know we've talked about it in the context of rates and looking at it in terms of rates. But I see that in terms of the immediate impact that it's having on local businesses with and presumably tenanted businesses as opposed to in the mobile space. Is there anything in the fees and charges piece that we're looking at in this space to do anything? What's, I guess, what is available to us to help support local businesses in one way and yet not necessarily, how are we looking at balancing that? Yeah.
Well, I disagree with it.
No, I was saying, what are we doing to balance that?
It was an article in the paper, I think, last week actually, might be Nelson, about coffee carts or something like that, and they, I think the council wanted to put whatever the differential, whatever up, and all up in arms down there, so I'm not sure.
Chair, I was just going to confess I was multitasking. I apologise. I'm so sorry. May I answer that question?
Sure, it was around the mobile vendors and balancing the rise in the mobile vendors with the needs of the current businesses and the impact that that's having on our current businesses and what we're doing to look at it. I understand we've had the conversation in terms of the rating piece, but are there other?
Through you, Chair, and thank you for the repeat. In terms of setting those fees and charges, that we simply take the operational cost, and obviously as we're guided and directed around the ratio of user pays, that is the simplistic basis that we use for setting fees and charges. As to those broader issues around what would be some kind of support for other operators or other parts of the city, that's not something that we explicitly look at through fees and charges, but perhaps there are other mechanisms elsewhere, and that may come down to the direction of user pays subsidy and so on. Otherwise, I would probably look to my colleague in strategy and just wonder whether there's a broader model.
Yeah, through you, Chair, I agree. I was going to make the same comment around fees and charges not being the right mechanism as the incentive or effective, if you like. So I think, broader consideration of what levers there may be available other than the rating policy aspect as we discussed.
Personally, I think this would be something that would be worth working at some point, because I think that there's that piece around our concern for our inner city and shops and how that's currently tracking. We don't want to see more closures in places. So what can we do to help support in different areas? And it's not necessarily penalising people who are in a mobile space, but it's a more broad, let's have a broad discussion on it.
And through you, if I can just add to that, what I didn't say earlier in the context of that broader conversation around rating policy is that in amongst the policy settings in the resource management urban planning space, as recently as some of our more recent plan changes, we've looked at things like the hierarchy of centres and how you don't fundamentally undermine the centre hierarchy. So, but what I didn't say before in terms of the work that Kate's group have programmed in their work program is certainly that the REG group across policy settings around urban planning, centres hierarchy and so on, and as indicated by Leslie, that there may be other tools, we would certainly feed into that sort of broader thinking.
Councillor Manley?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On the same vein, am I correct in thinking that if they're preparing food in the food truck, they'll have to have the same level of inspections that they do as any other kitchen?
Yeah, there's absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm unsure what the problem is then, because it's just market forces happening here. This isn't a market failure. This is just people going to cheaper alternatives during a tough time. I don't think we need to heavy hand and force more regulations on the food trucks because they're doing well. And I think it's the correlation, not a causation really, to say that these are the reasons why these businesses aren't doing well. It's just because people aren't eating out, they'll go to a cheaper alternative. I don't think it's necessarily a problem that needs too much solving. And at the end of it, if you did it, it'll just put prices up anyway, across the board.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Bentley. This is the thing called competition. And just happens to be another area of competition and another form of doing business. Are we going to then talk about businesses that go online and do their online business online? How far are you going to interfere?
Yeah.
It's called capitalism. It's called competition. Let it go.
Any other questions? I'll move to what we received. Mayor Guppy seconds. All in favour?
Aye.
Right, we shall move on to the Director's report, asset management operations. You have an update? probably Barley, Beechwood Lane one now.
I have an update on Beechwood Lane.
We've got a great reopening ceremony planned. No, through you, Chair, thank you. I would take a moment just to provide a couple of verbal updates on a couple of matters. If I go to paragraph 14, Civic Centre Central Pavement Upgrade. So the Code of Compliance certificate is on track to be issued in due course, thank you. But just to note, and I should have put this in just to assure you that it is safe. In the meantime, we do have a certificate for public use or a CPU that's in place, so it's perfectly fine for being here at the time being. So apologies for not noting that. Now I've just handed out, I thought it would be useful, just in terms of the green space that we're creating across the road here. So as anyone that drives past will have noticed, the building is now gone, which is terrific. The topsoil is down and the preparation is in place for paths. A number of people have asked me what's going on. So I've just passed out an aerial view of what we're proposing here. Now, another thing which happened is I, with the media team, put a social media post up on our Facebook page, which got about 140 comments, which is a bit of a surprise, but great that people are engaging with us. Shocking. So I just wanted to run through what is proposed here. So this is a temporary facility, bearing in mind that as per the LTP that's just been passed, in about the year 27-28, once traffic growth dictates it, we will be upgrading the intersections out here. Now, next question that might come is, what are the intersections going to look like? I can't tell you as yet because we haven't designed them as yet. However, I am pleased to tell you what the green space in the temporary car parking will look like, and that's as per the aerial plan here. So what we're looking at is an additional 30 car parks that will be reinstated on the eastern side of the block. On the western side, bounded by bollards so that no one can accidentally drive up onto the green space, will be a green space with paths, as you can see. The pink rectangle to the north is going to be a funky, vibrant, new pink seat that looks kind of like this, where people will be able to sit and sip their cappuccino. We're going to have a few planter pots, which kind of look like this, that are the other circular spots that you can see on your aerial map, followed by a pretty stock standard picnic table. Now, the good news is all of these assets that we're putting in place are there, they're temporary, they're surface mounted, and they're relocatable at any point in the future that we need to relocate them. So I just thought it'd be useful just to provide a bit of an update on that. We are also talking to the pharmacy around potential ways we can zhuzh up the wall there as well, that is on the side, and also Wellington Electricity in terms of the transformer that's there. So that will be reclad in due course, that Wellington Electricity will be paying for. So update on that. I was then going to move on to...
Before we do that.
Yes.
I'll let it go.
Okay.
I've got questions as well, but I'll put it away patiently.
Okay, through you, Chair. Just onto the three waters section. So as you'll be aware, because we have workshopped this, the local water done well work stream is progressing well. We have held a workshop as noted in paragraph 53. Lots of good work going on at an officer level in this space, making good progress, and we'll be reporting back to council through continuing workshops and actual council meeting probably around September. Another thing which has taken place since I wrote this report is I have finally been able to get out of Wellington Water a fortnightly leak report, which I have been circulating to yourselves as that comes out. I will in the future, I'm thinking I might actually append it to this report as well, just so that we have got it all in one place. The other thing that some people have asked me about is the Chatsworth Road water main renewal. There has been fencing up indicating that it is starting imminently. I'm advised that hopefully this week it is actually starting. Now, I have pushed Wellington Water as to why there has been a delay, and unfortunately it was due to a couple of whoopsies by the contractor that's involved around traffic management and actually decamping from the last site that the team was on, but they assure me it is underway imminently. And then just finally, just for a clarification under the civil defence section, I'm mindful that I live in an acronym-rich environment, and I wrote about planning is underway for an EAC exercise. That's a emergency evacuation centre exercise that'll be taking place over at our brand new Maidstone Sports Hub, which we're quite excited about. That's now booked in to take place on the 27th of August. That's okay. That's me. Thank you.
Right, over to the floor, Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding with building, I don't think the post that went up on Facebook was very helpful, the way it was worded. Well, I left a lot of questions unanswered and actually provided a lot of confusion for people, because a lot of people think we're doing it just at the park and then we'll do some roundabouts later. And I think the explanation of we'll do the roundabouts when the traffic grows is not quite accurate, right? We're waiting for the money from NZTA, not rather than.
Well, it's a bit of a combination. I mean, the driver, so we'll, as proposed, will undertake further investigations within this coming triennium.
Yeah.
But the driver that will trigger the need for the upgrades would be traffic growth. But you're absolutely right. Sorry, through Chair, you're absolutely right that we will need to secure the subsidies through.
I just think the way we worded it could have been better, because it's the same.
Okay, I'll take that on
And
board.
people also still don't understand why the buildings were taken down. Because
There were earthquakes.
Yeah, I know, but we just haven't, it didn't even mention in that post as well.
I take that on board.
Thank you. And then the next question, Chair, if that's all right, on the sports hub, 0.5, the Crown Infrastructure Partners Contingency Fund was applied for on 10th of May. Have we heard anything about that outcome?
Yeah, I don't think we have. I'll just confer with my colleague. I don't think we have actually heard back as yet around that.
No, through you, Chair, not as far as I am aware, and I was with the project manager in another meeting yesterday, and we talked a little bit about the sports hub, and he never mentioned that. We can certainly find out.
Do we know how much it was?
Yeah, was it?
3 million. Okay.
Yeah.
It's, and then, okay, so what happens if we don't get it?
We're thinking, through you, Chair, we're thinking very positively, and it has been reasonably assured as a contingency.
It was agreed as part of the
They agree.
funding arrangement. We had, the agreement was we had to spend our monies
Oh, yeah.
first.
This isn't new monies.
No, it's not new monies.
Okay.
So it's contingency money as part of the build.
Yeah.
And each party spent various amounts of monies.
Yeah. Now,
Then we got to the end
Yeah.
and we had to spend the rest.
okay, I thought this was an extra contingency.
No,
Thank you.
No, it's the 3 million at the end.
Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. How much is this costing, and when do we think it's going to be ready?
So the urban design and roading improvements, as you see there, was in the vicinity of around $60,000.
Right. And when's it?
Well, yeah. I mean, weather dependent. I mean, in the not too distant future. I mean, if you've gone past there, like the foundations are all good to go. I believe the equipment is ready to go as well. We're just waiting for the right weather conditions for the grass to grow, and then we can put the paths down as well. And bear in mind that 60 grand that you know the community will be able to use over a number of years as well. So I'm acutely mindful of the feedback around it being temporary, but temporary in so much as it's going to span at least 3 years.
That's a councillor.
So just following on, the 60 grand is for
Everything that you can see there.
what? The car park.
Yes, yeah. Not the demolition, that's a separate amount.
No, but to create the car parks.
Yeah.
And the green stuff.
So I've pushed the parks team and the writing team to do it as a
60 grand to do the car park.
well, yeah, but bear in mind, councillor, so it's a good point to pick up on. So one of the options we had would have been to completely rip up all of the pavement that you see over there and replace it. I'm not going to do that because I'm trying to be as, you know, as
That's why I
careful as
read
I can.
into.
And
Sorry,
the,
apologies. It's not a full replacement. It's a
Not for 60 grand.
no. Hopefully that's the right decision. I just I thought it'll last 3 years.
Okay, yeah, and so the point in terms of media and all that is because I know some people will pass on this as a permanent thing.
Absolutely.
And it'll be there to stay and the council's given up on the roundabout. So that's one point in the communications. The other thing in terms of the transformer, that ultimately has to get moved, doesn't it?
Yes.
Is that right? You're not going to be a Piccadilly Circus thing, like traffic goes around it.
3 year chair, I hope not. I don't think there would be a safe outcome. And I mean, just to put it out there and be transparent, the lovely Totoro tree there as well, in due course, we're going to have to look at. I know there have been suggestions around that could be a centrepiece for a roundabout, but in terms of design, we really are a long way away from whether it would be roundabouts or signalised intersections.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. On Ekatera Cemetery,
Yes.
I see that it's already forecast to go over budget and we've only just signed off the LTP. So why?
Well, bear in mind that this is a snapshot in time from May.
Yep.
I'm fairly confident it's not going to go over budget because from talking to the project managers, the project manager involved with it, there are some design solutions that we're looking at there in terms of accessing the new section. So this was a snapshot in time. One of the project risks identified here was around a wetland that has been identified, and it's an interesting wetland that has almost been a self-generated one that's due to a culvert that has been blocked up there. So that's another thing that we're exploring as well. So we are working through it. I'm confident, having talked with the project manager and the parks manager who oversees the cemetery, that we should be okay with this.
At 4.2.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I had one more I was going to put, Chair. The water consumed figures, very good to see that it's down, except for those thirsty people who put it on. Do we know if that's due to per capita usage going down, like electric consumption, or is that mostly because leaks of newspapers? It's probably both.
Yeah, through you, Chair, that is a great question, and I would say it is a bit of a combination. You'll see in terms of that the leak dashboard that we're pulling through now, and then I saw the chief executive couldn't help himself to also give his thoughts, given he's a great ex-water engineer around it. We are doing really well in Upper Hutt City Council and or within our territorial authority, and I think we should be celebrating that because we are doing well. So, sorry, to answer your question, I'd say it is a combination. Yeah.
Just that leak dashboard that was sent out the other day, it was very good to see the progress made as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other councillor Aldrin?
Thank you, through you, Chair. On page 64, on stormwater,
Yes.
there are cost escalations for the Pinehaven Stream floodworks. I'm wondering what those cost escalations are for, and because this is an ongoing thing with this project, the increasing costs that we're not budgeted for.
Yes, that's correct. So through you, Chair, through the LTP deliberations, I was careful to add in a section for council consideration around the Pinehaven project. Certainly, this project, as we're all aware, has been going on for a very long time. Well over a decade in its current form. Over that period of time, cost escalations have occurred, and most recently last year, to complete the current project in its current scoped form, including risk contingency, is getting upwards of $61 million. Now, Upper Hutt City Council did not have that budgeted within our budgets to complete. So I felt it was the best outcome for Upper Hutt City Council to have a review of what has been going on with that project. Since in my time that I've been with Upper Hutt City Council, I've reached out to Greater Wellington Regional Council as our 50-50 funding partner. I've started communication with them, including meeting with them a number of times, as well as with Wellington Water as our project manager for this project. We jointly, Greater Wellington and Upper Hutt City Council, concerned around the cost escalations. And so you'll see that in the LCP, money has been put aside for the next financial year to complete the current phase of the work, but we will be undertaking a review as well. Now, as I noted in the LTP deliberations document, I would imagine that that will highly likely lead on to us having to come back to council for consideration of what the next phase looks like, and will likely involve public consultation as well as to the cost is accepted. I personally am looking at it from a more outcome focused approach as to what is the outcome that we want to achieve through the flood management plan that's in place. And I'm just working through that with staff, both within Upper Hutt City Council and Greater Wellington Regional Council.
I've got a question from Matt. Councillor Carey, online.
Yeah, not a question, but just a well done on the roading renewals that are rolling out around. It's good to see, and they're so just well done to the team on that one.
Through you, Chair. Thank you very much. I mean, it is really good to see progress being made in that area. I mean, going forward, you know, whoever's sitting in the seat in the future, I'm keen to sort of get up in front a bit more with program delivery, so you know we don't have a similar mad rush at the end of the financial year, given the weather conditions we've got outside. But thank you very much. I will pass it on to the team.
Just on that with the roading team, just on 32, the safety improvements,
Yes.
traffic calming measures.
Yeah.
Now we've put traffic calming measures at Palmer Crescent and St. Brendan's due to the rat running. But I have mentioned it many times before about McLeod Street and Shakespeare Avenue as being another major rat running area, and I think it's only going to get worse. So, is there any indication that there will be any sort of calming measures in those two places?
Just through yourself, Chair. I did raise this with the roading team and had a bit of a discussion with them around McLeod Street and Shakespeare Avenue. There's a bit of a debate as to the level of the problem there that's occurring. Certainly happy to have a look at it and look at prioritising improvements there within other future safety improvements that take place across the city. I guess one thing to note here in this section around safety improvements is we are seeing in this new NLTP, National Land Transport Program period, and the money that's flowing through from Waka Kotahi, the transport agency, there is a shift away from prioritising safety projects. So we will need to look at potential improvements to those areas within the context of the amount of money that we have there as well. But certainly take it on board around those streets as well. And I have raised it with the roading team.
Okay, they don't see it as a...
Well, they hadn't seen it at this point in time. So I'm happy to explore it. I mean, I want to go out there myself and peak time and have a look.
I've certainly had a lot of residents, you know, in the area come to me and complain.
Oh, no,
quite a few times. And what I don't want to see is a major incident happening down there, knowing that we actually knew that it was a possible area where rat running is.
Yeah. Okay. And the concern is more around speed and, you know, children and. Definitely. Yeah. Okay. No, I'm certainly happy to take that back.
Councillor Bennett.
Another big one for running is Terminus Street as well. Cars tend to hoon around there, and it's a lot of kids walk to and from school that way. That'd be a good one to look at.
Is it Terminus?
Terminus.
Off Garden
Street. Round there.
I am slowly getting I can navigate my way through Upper Hutt well, but I haven't memorised all the street names as yet.
Councillor Hammond?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Is there anything going to be done in Ward Street? It would probably be the worst route in Upper Hutt. Stand first. It'll be an extremely hard one to reseal the college and the houses. I mean, getting a good time, but it really needs to be looked at.
Is this the street where the intersections at each end have been?
Yeah.
Fixed?
No, that was PMC. That was the other shocker.
Is it?
Another shocker.
But is it?
It's been done. It's been done down in the corner of Main Street coming on to Ward.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been done Ferguson Drive on to Ward, and that's also starting to get ripped up a fair bit too, because it has been a sort of a rat run for the trucks coming out of Alexander Road, but most responsible carriers have asked their fleet not to go that way. But it is a terrible road, and it's would probably be the worst.
The water main got done a couple of years ago and it's just never been good since.
Okay.
Has that been quoted for to be done?
Just through the chair, so councillor Bentley raised a similar matter, and that's why I was curious, having not specifically know the street. So we've got an issue where if the Wellington Water go into streets and do the works, we do need, but you're saying it's 2 years ago, which is interesting. We need to really give it a year to consolidate and compact down before we come back in and do surfacing work. But if it's been 2 years, then that's more than 2 years.
Okay, Carlson Contracting did it, they replaced the sewage or drainer. It's mainly down the Alexander half of Ward Street, which is the worst, which was badly patched up. And there's been lots of complaints about it.
Pensy Street was done by Wellington Water over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's a shocker. And in fact, we've had people actually, LGP actually talked about it here, saying it was a terrible one, where, really bad driving because it's so again, speed and you've got bad road.
Through you, Chair, if you could leave it with me, I'll certainly go and have a conversation with our riding team about McLeod, Shakespeare, Terminus, Ward, Pensy, Alexander.
Alexander's all right
Anymore.
I suggest we move on, otherwise we'll redesign every road now. It's not the purpose of this committee.
True. Right, just on 41, recycling station, right, that's a big shout out. Very easy, very simple, with the glass, going in there. I like to say welcoming, team for that.
Thanks. Shout out to Mitch.
Excellent.
Any other questions? A third question, one more, okay?
Paragraph 6 about the electronic children warning signs going to be ceased to function. So when will they cease to function, and do we have a safety issue in terms of, are we doing anything about it to replace those signs or not?
Through you, Chair. Yes, the roading team have raised this with me. Exactly, I mean, when they cease to function is when those networks shut down. And I believe 2G is now shut down, and 3G is all but shut down. So we're just going through a process of replacement with these signs. And we sort of got ahead of ahead of it a bit in the last financial year as well, to utilise the safety subsidy that was available. That's less so available this financial year. So we do have a replacement.
So we are going to replace them. Okay.
Okay. Councillor
Page 61 through you, Chair. I just wanted to ask about, so in terms of the safety, so it's obvious, it says the program is currently on hold. That was 0.36.
So just to clarify, this is paragraph 61.
Sorry?
Paragraph 6.
Page
61, sorry.
61, sorry.
All right, no, that's my mistake.
So around the, Speed Around Schools program was put on hold. So the question I had around that was, so when we were discussing the Speed Around Schools program, that was about signage and speed zones, but pedestrian crossings weren't included in that. Do we have a separate program for assessing and upgrading pedestrian crossings? Because I wondered if raised platforms could be a part of that around schools. So if the pedestrian crossing is up for, repainting, renewal, would that be a good time to actually raise the platform? Because as much as car drivers don't like raised platforms, they are really effective at getting traffic to slow down before they reach the crossing, even if there's no one there. So it's something to just remind drivers to slow down.
Yeah, just through you, Chair. So, I mean, certainly the roading team on a case-by-case basis do consider what is the best design for a particular area, and we've certainly had in recent times, the community have approached us around desiring a crossing by one of the kindergartens towards the north end of the city. And we do go out and we go on site and meet and consider what is the best option, taking into account traffic counts, the speeds that vehicles are going, and also to points that have been made previously around whether it's a main arterial or not, because that can affect the suitability of whether a raised platform is appropriate or not. So I wouldn't want to commit here to every single pedestrian crossing that we replace as becoming raised, but we certainly are cognizant of what is the most safe design for any particular crossing. I don't know if does that answer your question? Or did you,
so it's really just around whether we have a separate program specifically for, you know, keeping up with maintenance of pedestrian crossings.
Yeah, so we
I mean, this is obviously a separate funding pool from the safety around schools, or the speed around schools program that has been put on hold. So is there another program that's, you know, currently ticking along behind the scenes that
I mean, there are various buckets there that are continuing to tick along, and as we certainly replace pedestrian crossings, then we look at what is the best option for the crossing that's being replaced. In terms of installing new pedestrian crossings or speed restrictions, that's a slightly different matter that I'd need to fully come back to you on, just given the ramifications of the new funding that's coming out of the NZTA and Waka Kotahi.
Yeah, so it's just that I've noticed a lot of the fading paint and things like that, visibility when it's bad weather and things like that around pedestrian crossings. And so for the ones outside schools, those would be the ones that obviously, are they being checked? I mean, we've just done a check of all the bridges in Upper Hutt, so does the same thing happen for pedestrian crossings?
I'm confident that the team has assets for that condition, and that's getting fed into the program for maintenance renewals. I can come back to you.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
I'd like a little more around that. Yeah.
Okay.
Any further questions? No? Okay, we've got a mover and Councillor Beckman, the seconder, Councillor Hammond, all in favour? Right. I'll declare the meeting closed at 5:46. Thank you online and